All right, I have a real treat for you today. Today, I'm going to be talking about the King James authorized version of the Bible. But not only that, I have a real treat today. I'm going to share with you a Bible that's just a little bit older than this one. Still the same version, but I want to give you a size comparison. This is a Bible that I use every single day. My last Bible got destroyed because I accidentally left it on top of one of my vehicles. And when I drove to town, fell off and got ran over a whole bunch of times. So I had to use this as a backup Bible. But this is the fantastic Bible. I don't know if you could see this, but it has no notes in it, which is fantastic. But that's not why I want to make a video today. I want to showcase this bad boy right here. Look at this. This is the holy grail of Bibles. Look at this bad boy. This is heavy. This has got to be about 20, 30 pounds, I'm thinking. This is the Holy Bible references and with the old and the new versions of the New Testament. Look at how big this bad boy is. Put it beside my head. It's huge. So I got this from my son-in-law. I borrowed it. I have to give it back to him. But when I saw it, my eyes almost popped out of my head. This is fantastic. So I'm going to share maybe just a little bit about what's in it. And this is just a pure treasure. If you're a fan of King James, you're going to love this. If you're a fan of the Bible, you'll love this as well. Like it's gorgeous. I just love the rustic nature of it. And it's got maps. You know how I'll be able to hold this up here. It's got all kinds of stuff in here. It's got maps, charts, drawings that are just unbelievable. I don't know if you could see that. I don't want to hold it too close. I might knock my mic over. But this is just amazing. Like, I just finished reading the introduction here. Let's see if you can see this. Books of the Holy Bible right there. Basically, it just gives you a snapshot of what they went through to get this into our hands. And it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. They even have this here. I found this the most interesting. This is called the Valuable Table, showing the principal events of the history of the world from AD 98 to 1882. And this was printed in 1884. So this is the history of the world from basically 98 to 1882. And what I found was interesting is a couple of things jump out. One is all the wars that were going on around the earth, especially around the Middle East, Europe, and surrounding nations. It was just crazy back and forth. Also, what was interesting was the persecution of the Christians. They were constantly being persecuted. And there is even a ban by the Catholic Church to not allow people to read the Bible. So they kept it in Latin till you get William Tinsdale and all these guys, Wycliffe, trying to translate this into English so that we could read it. We, the common folk, could read it, which is very interesting. Whenever you have some organization or entity that bans something, you know it is valuable. Look at this. This is just monumentous. I just love it so much. Oh, another thing, they talk about the discovery of Greenland. I think it was also the discovery of obviously the Americas, but Finland, Columbus. They talk about the discovery of the telescope in the 1600s. just before they made the Bible, the 1611 King James Version, which I thought was fantastic. They also talk about laying the first ever transatlantic cable. Remember those in another video I talk about underwater sea cables? This is why we get the internet and all this kind of stuff. Well, they talk about that here. I have a quick snapshot. They tried it once and failed, trying to get it from Newfoundland to the coast or to Europe, and failed. And then they did it again a little bit later. Just fascinating. Copernicus is not mentioned in this at all. He's not even on the radar here. Galileo's there with the invention of the telescope, which is interesting. All kinds of stuff. The railways. This is kind of interesting. Rail lines were actually invented in the late 1600s. I thought they were a recent invention, like in the last couple of 100 years, but apparently they had railroads with wooden tracks. That's interesting. I love history. So if you're a Christian, you would love something like this. I am sure of it. If you're not a Christian, if you're not a believer, this is history. The idea that a bunch of guys got together, 54 guys under the authority of King James, got together and they divvied up the Bible. Everybody basically had a section to work on. It took them 3 years to meticulously translate the Bible from, I believe it was the Messianic text, Masoretic text is what they used. And it's quite fascinating how they did it, like just painstakingly. What also stood out to me was the idea that they wanted to create a translation that was as close to the Hebrew language as humanly possible. They didn't want to introduce a bunch of phrases and that kind of stuff that wouldn't make sense in future generations, where it's like, oh yeah, that's a saying, but that's no longer used, all this kind of stuff. They wanted to stick to the cultures as much as possible. Hopefully that makes sense. So if they have a couple of words, they're going to try and use those words as close as possible, even if they don't understand what the word means. If they don't understand what that word means, they will put it in a margin saying, we don't get what this word is, but we think this is as close to what we understand the word to be. Modern translations will actually inject phrases that are in our common culture in the West, if you will. The King James Bible tried to stay away from that. Some people get that mixed up and they're like, they always say something like, we need a modern language because we can't understand the old King James and all this kind of stuff. And I would argue the way to preserve history is to try and get as close as you can to what the original text was, even if you don't understand what it means. And they tried very hard to stick to that, because what was happening with other versions where people were putting their religious biases on things, and they wanted to stay away from that, because when the Hebrew, again, with the Masoretic text, the scholars of that day would actually find a word that was in Hebrew and then translate it almost word for word in English. Boom, 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 boom. That's what they would try and do. So that I can fully appreciate, and I probably will never switch over to another version just because of how much work they put into it. Will I glance at a version from time to time? Yes, most likely, because there are some times, like the contemporary version, for example, on a Saturday, I will spend time just listening to the entire book of Deuteronomy. But will I buy the contemporary version? No. Will I buy the ESV version, the American Standard Version, NIV? No. I have a bunch of those versions, but I promise you, I'll probably never go back to that. The only way that I would go back to those versions is if I'm critiquing them and saying, this is why this doesn't work compared to the King James. So, and again, because I've been going through the King James Bible a lot over the past 10 months, last year, I read the Bible 4 times in a year. And my goal is to try and get it to a point where I can go through the entire Bible every single month. And when you do that, you can actually appreciate God's word more. And I haven't been able to do that with the New Living Translation. I haven't been able to do that with the NIV. Any of these other versions, I put them down after 5 or 10 minutes. But for some reason, when I read the King James Version, I could read nonstop, day and night, morning, afternoon, evening. I can listen to it all day as well. So I might make some more videos down the road if you like this kind of thing. And I might try and set up my shop a little bit better so I could show some of the pages. Some of the print at the beginning, especially when they talk about how they got the translation, is a little bit small for a guy like me. So I have to use a magnifying glass and go through it. So it's painstakingly fun, if that makes sense. So hopefully you got something out of this. If you like this kind of thing, please give me a thumbs up. That just tells me that you're interested in the history of the King James Bible. And yeah, this is the Bible. It's a couple hundred years old, printed in, I believe, 1884. So it's fantastic. I love it so much. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe to this channel. Feel free to comment, share your thoughts. If you want me to share something out of this Bible, let me know that as well. Thank you. See you later.